Welcome to History with Herodotus, where the boundaries of time and space are bridged by the power of storytelling. Today, we embark on a journey to the heart of Southeast Asia, to a valley nestled in the misty mountains of Vietnam, where one of the most pivotal battles of the 20th century unfolded. The Battle of Dien, a clash of empires, ideologies, and armies that would forever alter the course of modern history. In the early 1950s, the world was still reeling from the aftermath of World War II. The French, once a dominant colonial power, were struggling to maintain their grip on Indochina, a region they had controlled for over a century. Meanwhile, the Viet Minh, a communist-led coalition of nationalist forces, had been waging a relentless guerrilla war against the French since 1946. Led by the enigmatic and charismatic Ho Chi Minh, the Viet Minh sought to expel the French from Vietnamese soil and establish an independent state. As the conflict escalated, the French, under the leadership of General Henri Navarre, devised a plan to draw the Viet Minh into a decisive battle. They chose a remote valley in northwestern Vietnam near the town of Dien Bien Phu as the perfect trap. The valley, surrounded by towering mountains and dense jungle, seemed an ideal location for the French to establish a fortified base from which they could launch attacks against the Viet Minh. In November 1953, the French began constructing a series of fortified outposts in the valley, including Beatrice, Gabrielle, and Anne-Marie. These strongpoints were designed to provide mutual support and protection, as well as serve as a launching pad for sorties against the surrounding countryside. The French troops, mostly colonial forces from Morocco, Algeria, and Senegal, were confident in their superior firepower and training. Meanwhile, the Viet Minh, under the command of General Voi Nguyen Giap, had been secretly gathering intelligence on the French positions. Giap, a brilliant strategist, recognized the significance of Dien Bien Phu as a potential battleground. He began to mobilize his forces, comprising tens of thousands of soldiers, many of whom were armed with nothing more than rifles and determination. The French, convinced of their own invincibility, were about to face an enemy who had been fighting for independence for nearly a decade. The Viet Minh, fueled by nationalism and a desire for self-determination, were prepared to sacrifice everything to expel the colonial powers from their homeland. As the spring of 1954 arrived, the Viet Minh launched a series of probing attacks against the French outposts, testing their defenses and gathering intelligence on their dispositions. On March 13, 1954, General Giap unleashed a massive artillery barrage against the French positions, signaling the start of the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. The French, confident in their fortified strongpoints, were initially able to repel the Viet Minh assaults, but they soon found themselves facing an enemy who was relentless and seemingly endless in numbers. The Viet Minh had spent months digging tunnels and trenches, allowing them to move troops and supplies undetected through the jungle. They had also constructed a network of makeshift artillery positions from which they could pound the French outposts with accurate and sustained fire. As the battle raged on, the French found themselves increasingly isolated and cut off from reinforcements. Their supply lines stretched thin by the treacherous terrain. One of the most significant events of the battle occurred on March 15, 1954, when the Viet Minh overran the French outpost at Beatrice, killing or capturing nearly all of its defenders. The French attempted to retake Beatrice, but their counterattacks were repeatedly repelled by the Viet Minh, who had established themselves in fortified positions on the surrounding high ground. As the days turned into weeks, the French garrison at Dien Bien Phu became increasingly desperate. They were running low on food, water, and ammunition, and their casualties were mounting by the hour. The Viet Minh, on the other hand, seemed to be gaining strength and momentum as fresh troops and supplies poured in from the surrounding countryside. General Giap, the Viet Minh commander, would later recall that the French were like a man who is drowning but still trying to swim against the current. On April 1, 1954, the Viet Minh launched a massive assault against the French outpost at Gabrielle, which was defended by a battalion of Moroccan troops. The battle raged on for hours, with both sides suffering heavy casualties, but in the end, the Viet Minh emerged victorious, overrunning the French positions and killing or capturing most of its defenders. This victory gave the Viet Minh control of the high ground surrounding Dien Bien Phu, allowing them to pour artillery fire down on the French garrison with impunity. As the situation grew more dire for the French, their commander, General de Castries, became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. He would often spend hours in his bunker, listening to classical music and contemplating the impending doom that awaited him and his troops. The French garrison was now on the brink of collapse, its defenses breached, its supplies dwindling, and its morale shattered. The Viet Minh, sensing victory within their grasp, pressed their attack with renewed ferocity, determined to crush the French once and for all. As the French garrison teetered on the brink of collapse, General de Castries realized that his situation was hopeless. On May 7, 1954, after a brutal and relentless assault by the Viet Minh, the French defenses at Dien Bien Phu finally breached and the garrison surrendered. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu had lasted for 55 days, resulting in staggering casualties on both sides, with estimates suggesting that over 3,000 French soldiers were killed or wounded, and upwards of 10,000 Viet Minh fighters suffered a similar fate. In the aftermath of the battle, the Geneva Accords were signed on July 21, 1954, granting Vietnam its independence from France and dividing the country into two zones, with the Communist North and the anti-Communist South. The Accords also established a temporary division of the country along the 17th parallel, with the promise of national elections to reunify the country in 1956. However, these elections were never held, and the division of Vietnam ultimately led to the outbreak of the Vietnam War in the early 1960s. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu marked a significant turning point in world history, as it signaled the end of French colonial rule in Indochina and paved the way for the rise of communist movements across Southeast Asia. As General Giap would later reflect, the victory at Dien Bien Phu was not just a military triumph, but a testament to the strength and resilience of the Vietnamese people, who had fought for their freedom against overwhelming odds. The battle also served as a stark reminder of the limitations of conventional military power in the face of determined guerrilla warfare, a lesson that would be painfully learned by the United States in the decades that followed. Today, the Battle of Dien Bien Phu is remembered as a symbol of Vietnamese resistance and determination, with the battlefield itself serving as a poignant reminder of the devastating consequences of war. The site has been preserved as a National Historic Park, featuring museums, memorials, and artifacts from the battle, including the remnants of the French fortifications and the graves of the fallen soldiers. As visitors walk through the park, they are met with a haunting sense of history, a reminder that the sacrifices made by the soldiers who fought and died at Dien Bien Phu will never be forgotten. The legacy of the Battle of Dien Bien Phu extends far beyond the borders of Vietnam, serving as a powerful symbol of the struggle for independence and self-determination that has inspired movements around the world. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu may be a distant memory, but its impact continues to reverberate through the ages, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.